This is Retirement Roadmap Radio with Mark Fricks from Master Plan Retirement Consultants. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Retirement Roadmap Radio with your host, Mark Fricks.
Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Retirement Roadmap Radio with me, Mark Fricks, your host. And we are being joined today, as always, by Tony Shore. And we have a great show ahead of us. And I think we'll go ahead and bring Tony in since he's here already and showing his bright, smiling mug. Tony, how are you, my friend?
I have been really good, Mark. I'm glad you asked. I've just had so much going on in my life with family stuff. We had the entire family and our kids' significant others get together. We were all together and had dinner lunch this past weekend to celebrate my son's birthday. He's 23 now, and he's married. A few weeks.
Nice.
So yeah. So that was fun, and I've been busy with work. How about you? What's going on over there?
It's our busy season, which I think every season is our busy season. But, Tony, I got to tell you, it was such an exciting week. I taught my first face-to-face class since COVID. And
Really?
It was fantastic. It was so good. I was excited.
Good to be back.
The students were excited. We had 2 classes, each with about 30 or 40 people in it. It was so good. It was so nice to be able to see the reactions and feed off the students and feedback. And I miss it so much. It was really good. Yep.
Well, that's great.
Loved
the in-person, you can't replace the in-person contact and communication.
No, we won't ever stop doing that. We do less because it's so convenient to do the webinars, but we will not. In fact, I'm going to Birmingham tomorrow to teach 3 classes in Birmingham. So
Birmingham, Alabama?
Alabama. Not England, Birmingham, Alabama.
Good.
But yeah, I'm excited about that. We'll be teaching some federal classes there. So we have some federal workers joining us to figure out how that system works.
Sure. So you do that too. You help federal employees with federal benefits and retirement planning, right?
Yeah, we tie that into regular retirement planning because it is overly complicated.
It can
and they don't
be,
provide training. The government doesn't tell them anything, and so it's I think we provide a valuable resource for our federal workers, and our federal workers do give up some stuff to work for the federal. I mean, they have a great pension. But I've got several doctors that work at VA, and they make less money than if they were in private practice. Nurses, and so they give up to. Many of them consider that they're serving their country in that capacity. So I respect that a lot, really do.
Yeah, me too.
Big shout out to all you guys and girls.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of government employees are really doing it for the service of the country and for the people, to help people. So that's really good. And the sad part is that our government doesn't do a better job of explaining these benefits. And some people don't even know what they're eligible for, like military benefits and things. It's like they only find out via word of mouth, or if they're working with a financial services professional like yourself to help them make the right decisions with what they have to work with. Right. That's the key.
Well, right? No, go ahead, Tony. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, speaking of that, that's what we're talking about today, right? The basics of retirement planning. Yeah,
before we get into that, Tony, I did not tell you this in our pre-show meeting here, but we are actually having, I'm going to go ahead and announce it, we are having an open house and ribbon cutting. Now, when I say that, people are like, well, congratulations on your new office. Well, our new office opened in November of 2019. What happened 3 months later, right? We all shut down. So we never had our open house and ribbon cutting. So it's May 12th. We're in the West Cobb, West Marietta area. If you have, just please drop by. It's a 2-hour. We have food trucks. We have some really cool stuff going on. And if you want to know more about it, just go to our webpage. It's on the front page. Scroll down just a little bit. It says ribbon cutting and open house. Gives the date, May 12th. It's 11 to 1 o'clock p.m. Our office address is on there. Just drop by. I'd love to meet our listeners. Love to sign some books for you. Just say hello to me and get some free food. That's the best part.
Yeah,
so masterplanretire.com is the website, and would love to have anyone that we're planning for hundreds and hundreds. So, hey, we got room. I've already paid for the food, so we got to eat it.
Well, now you're speaking my language, though. Free food. You said the two magic words.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, no,
Actually,
that's going to be.
I don't think I can use the word free because we do security. So complimentary food might be a better way to put it.
No charge for the food.
Right.
There's no charge for the food. That's what they don't even like you using the word complimentary.
In case the SEC is listening, we want to be safe.
Yeah. There's no charge for the food.
Right.
It's not free because it would take the time you take. Your time is of value,
Right.
so the time you take to eat the food.
Yep. Exactly.
Compliance. I love it. So, Mark, we're talking about retirement planning, though, today. And I think you wanted to go back and give the listeners the basics. Make sure that you're doing these basic things, what you need to be doing to have a successful retirement, right?
Yeah, we're calling this Retirement Planning 101. And so I want to really, Tony, it's more about our process because, people not knowing can be fearful. And some people won't schedule an appointment because they don't know what are they going to do. Are they going to try to do this or back me in the corner? Is it a timeshare? What's going on?
They're selling me something, and none of those concerns are legitimate.
No,
but what do you do? That's great because our listeners might think, well, I don't need to work with a financial services professional, or I don't want to set up a meeting because I don't know what they're going to do or say.
Exactly.
Yeah,
the unknown can be scary. So that's kind of what we want to do. So as our listeners know, we start off with what's the word besides complimentary that you mentioned, Tony? No charge.
No charge.
A no charge meeting or consultation.
Yeah.
And this could be something, Tony, as simple as a 20-minute phone chat, a 30-minute Zoom call. Or you could go ahead and provide us some information up front so we can really, begin looking at your situation. Doesn't matter. It's a time to really just kind of chat and see where, the person's at in their retirement. And, you can be age 30, you could be 75. It doesn't matter. But where are you? Because if we don't know where you're at and what your concerns are, we don't know where you want to be and how we're going to get there. So that
everybody's situation is different, right? I mean, the time horizon. If you're 30, you've got a longer time horizon, and you're going to need a different plan than if you're 61 and going to retire in a year or two. So that makes sense. Now, quick question, though, going back. Are you still doing face-to-face meetings if somebody wants that? Okay.
More and more.
Because I know you mentioned Zoom calls and what the webinars you do, but if somebody wants to meet in person, they can come in. And again, there is no charge or obligation. You're just giving them an initial consultation, maybe running a couple of reports for them to show where they're at. So it's a no-brainer to get that done so you can at least see where you're at.
Right.
And
exactly. Yeah, the reports are amazing. We go through them one at a time. There's anywhere from 7 to 10 reports depending on your situation. And it's just going to show you, are you healthy financially to retire? Are you on the way to being healthy? Or what do you need to do to get healthy? And then what are the things that can trip you up along the way? What happens if there's a bear market the same year you retire? I mean, that can really be devastating. What happens if when taxes rise, right? All of these different scenarios that we want to look at because you can't know what to work on without knowing what the issues are. So that's what those reports will do. And again, there's no charge for those. It could be part of that initial meeting, or we can talk in that first meeting and say, yeah, let's do the reports and schedule a second meeting. Still no charge for that as well.
Yeah, because, right now we're seeing so much market volatility and inflation. Wow. Fortunately for the folks that have been working with you, they've got a solid plan in place that takes into account bear markets, market volatility, inflation, and so they're set. But folks that maybe don't have the right plan, they need to get a second opinion on where they're at. Now is a good time because of the craziness out there with the market volatility this year. I mean, the markets are down 10, 12% year to date overall. And, we've got a lot of craziness out there with the Ukraine situation and rising inflation.
And Tony, what I've been telling folks for the last, 6 or 7 years, this volatility began right around the tech bubble.
Yep.
And it's been, if you look at a comparison between the previous 20 years and the 20 years since the tech bubble, the volatility is amazing, the difference. And it's not going to stop. It's going to get worse because technology, social media, the speed of information, which is the speed of money, the worldwide economy. I mean, there's just all of this going on that volatility is not going to change back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's not. And so how do you, it's a different way of planning. And I have people come see us, and they've been working with somebody at whatever ABC company or one of the big buildings or whatever, and they're still treating money the same way as I treated it in the 80s and 90s, and it's different. And that's why we always, Tony, I tell my clients, I spend an hour at least every morning reading the latest, reading what's going on, what's happening in the markets, what's happening with taxes in Congress, just to make sure we're ahead of the curve on all of this kind of stuff. And so that's one of the things I love about what I do is learning new things, and I learn something every day. And we've got an advisor in training, and I'm like, how are you going to learn all this stuff? Because it took me so many years, and I'm still learning it. But I mean, you do it.
It's taken you a couple of years, right? You've been doing this. How long have you been doing this?
Almost 30 years.
30 years. You must have started when you were 10.
12.
You're you can't be a day over 40.
Okay. Okay. We're on video, right? So
yeah.
You guys be the judge, okay?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's kind of the beginning. That again, no fees, no charges for that.
Sure.
And once we look at those reports and we kind of give you the culmination of what we found, then we have a discussion about what's the next step. And so one step could be, hey, thank you for the reports. See you later. I'll make it on my own.
Sure.
That's fine. It's like going to a doctor and the doctor saying you have this condition. You're going, thanks, doc. Now that I know I've got it, I'll go and Google it, or that's fine, whatever. But most folks will look at those and go, wow, I did not realize where I really was. And so we will basically begin a process of what we call onboarding. That's when they say, I want to be a client. And so we fill out paperwork, we fill out risk tolerance, we fill out information sheets with them to make them a client. And then step one is where we begin education. Financial planning meeting one is education. First of all, they get a copy of my book, and that gives them the basics of what we do. And then I start going into the various, I start with the big picture, the color of money, and money can be divided into 3 areas, and each area has a function, and then under those areas are various tools to use. And so we kind of do a broad brush educational approach. We may even invite them to a current class we're teaching, just so that they understand. I'm not going to sit in front of somebody and tell them what to do. I'm going to say, this is what would work best here. Now that you understand more about it, what do you think? And I want them to push back. I want them to ask questions, and let's make sure that they understand what they're doing, because if they're not involved in the planning process, they're probably not going to really stick with it. And my job is to keep that process going, which is why we meet once or twice a year, making sure we're online and things like that. So that first planning meeting is about education, is about the big picture of money, estate planning, tax planning, those types of areas.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And it's important that people understand how much they could be losing with mistakes they make versus if they work with a financial services professional, just because of the sheer fact of how much there is to know and how quickly things change from taxes to Social Security maximization to all these things that really can impact your retirement in big ways.
Yep. And so that's why we kind of start with the big picture, and then we begin going into each individual area. So the first area we go into in the planning meeting number 2 is we go into money, because without money, taxes don't matter. Without money, estate planning doesn't matter. Without money, income planning doesn't matter. You kind of get the picture here, right? So we start with the money, and we want to begin dividing up, because Tony, as we've talked about before, most people that come to see us have 1 or 2 big buckets of money. Maybe the wife worked at IBM for 30 years and has a big 401k, and the husband worked at for the government for 30 years and has a big thrift savings plan. So they got one or two big buckets of money. Over those 30 years, what was the job of that account? It was to grow. That's the only job it had, was to grow. Okay, so they put money in, the company hopefully put money in, and it was in the market for 30 years. It's going to grow over a 30-year period, right? And so that no longer is the job in retirement. That needs to be split up into individual specific buckets. Why? It's almost like building a house. Okay, so when you start with a house, you start with one tool, a shovel. You dig the foundation. But once you begin now doing the walls of the house, now a shovel doesn't work too well. You can't hammer a nail with a shovel. You can't saw a board in half with a shovel. You can. It's not going to be a pretty sight, right? And so now we have 6, 8, 10 tools. So now as we approach retirement, we want to take these tools that were just for growth and split them up into specific jobs. So some examples would be, hey, bucket 1 that we split off is going to be for income immediately when they retire, replacing that paycheck. Bucket 2 could be future income to combat inflation. Bucket 3 could be a very conservative growth bucket for those needs every year. Hey, we want to go to Europe, we need a new car, but we can't be volatile. Bucket 4 may be kind of a moderate, that money we might need in the next 5 years. The next bucket may be aggressive or semi-aggressive to for needs when we get older, long-term care needs, health care needs. Tony, I would say our average client probably has 10 buckets of money, each with a specific job. One or two of them might be buckets that are designed to hedge the market. In other words, market goes down, these go up. Precious metals is a great example. A lot of our clients have buckets of precious metals, gold, silver. Another bucket might have a protected bottom where it can go up with the market but cannot lose money. I tell you what, those are real popular over the last 3 months. All of a sudden, people are loving those accounts, And so
the buffered indexes. Yeah.
Exactly. So we want to get the money and the income position first. That's kind of step 1, and that's meeting number 2.
Sure. And you talk about utilizing all those tools in the toolbox, or all those buckets. It reminds me of something my dad always told me. He always said, "Son, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail."
I like that.
And it just doesn't work that way. No. If all you have is a hammer, if that's the only tool you have, everything looks like a nail. But you need to be able to utilize all the tools in the toolbox. That's why some of these big box companies limit you to just their few select products and their, if you're a broker firm, it's like the market is your only tool. Right.
And that's fine if you're 30 years old, right?
Yeah.
But
the market's great if you're 30 years old and have a long time horizon, and that's what you do for your younger clients and for your people as they get closer to retirement. They've got to change and get more and more balanced and diverse, and so that makes perfect sense. I think that's a great one. And what's another thing that what's the next step then?
Yeah, so once we begin getting money repositioned, we move into tax planning. So tax planning is about, okay, now we've got these buckets. How are they taxable? And so a lot of them are tax deferred, which means they're 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, TSPs, which means we've been enjoying a tax holiday. But now it's time to pay the piper. When you retire and you start using this money, it's coming out fully taxable at whatever rate you're at. Whether that be the rate you are today or 5 years from now when rates may be 20% higher. And so we want to begin repositioning some of that money into tax-free and tax-efficient buckets so that we're prepared in the future and we're not controlled by the IRS.
Yeah, you don't want to be sitting on a ticking tax time bomb, which unfortunately most traditional retirement accounts and employee-sponsored retirement accounts are, because they're tax-deferred now, but all that growth that happens and all that principal you put in, it's all taxable when you pull it out in retirement, and that can be devastating to your retirement plan and could derail you if you don't switch over and have some tax-free options as well, right?
Yeah, you just quoting Ed Slott's book.
Yep.
The I can't remember the exact title, but it's the Great Ticking Tax Time Bomb, or the Coming Ticking Tax Time Bomb. Another author out there now.
Is amazing.
Yeah, he is, and David McKnight's doing a great job. He's got a book called The Power of Zero that talks about taxes, and we've got a book that I actually was able to write the foreword for that we'll be glad to give our clients as well. People come see us about the importance of tax planning. It's a shorter read. As you know, I don't know any big words, so it's all little words.
Right.
The biggest word I know is retirement, and because I use it all the time. So anyway, that's the next area that we look at is the tax situation and how can we begin getting money into some tax efficient and tax free type of plans without killing ourselves on taxes today.
Yeah, there you go. And taxes, minimizing that tax burden in retirement is big because those traditional accounts are going to have required minimum distributions. So at some point, the government's going to make you take withdrawals, even if you think, well, I don't need to touch it and I'll just leave it there for my kids. Nope, you're going to have to take it out. You're going to have to pay taxes on it if it's a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, something like that. So you talked about taxes and you talked about allocation, right, with the different buckets.
Right.
What's next? What do you do next?
So now we move into estate planning. We want to make sure that a couple of things. Number one is that if you're incapacitated, you still maintain control of your stuff through the right paperwork, whether it be a trust, whether it be a financial power of attorney, whether it be both. We want to make sure that your stuff is safe, is properly protected, and it's used to take care of you, and also still left if you have a spouse. You fight. If you're in a nursing home for 5 years, you pass away, you've spent down some of your money, and now your spouse is left with less money. So there's some planning in that, but mostly to make sure we avoid probate and the cost of probate, the complexity of probate, the publicity, the public vision of probate. That's you can go down and look in anybody's will that's filed at the courthouse. That's open records, right?
Yeah.
You got to advertise it, and so we want to avoid probate. We want to avoid the cost of probate, and we want to avoid taxes involved in the transition from one estate to the heirs. And so that's all part of the estate planning and making sure something as simple as this, Tony, is a beneficiary audit. Are your beneficiaries correct? And then if we do new paperwork,
that's huge.
Does it match up to the new paperwork? I mean,
let's say if you've been divorced or something happens with one of your children, and God forbid, but these things happen, you really need to update those beneficiaries.
Well, and even custodians lose paperwork. So I want to make sure my clients have a copy of the confirmation that we changed your beneficiary, because when banks buy banks or banks get absorbed, half that paperwork doesn't get transferred. So we want to make sure all of that, we keep a record of it. And Tony, I sometimes hesitate to say this, but, our firm's been in business 12 years now. So our first 9 years, we had one death. In the last 2 years, we've had 8. And probably another 4 or 5 that are in nursing homes. Okay. And so as our clients are aging, the ones that we first picked up, we're seeing how important it is to make sure this stuff is lined up. And so that is
huge.
And most people won't do it unless we're there guiding the process. And if you go see an attorney and say, I want a will, guess what you get? You get a will. But maybe you don't need a will. Maybe you need a trust. But they really won't have that conversation with you. They'll give you what you ask for. So we want to do the planning ahead of time and then hand it to one of our attorneys that know how we work to create the documents. And it's a team effort.
Yeah, it's important to work with a financial services professional to really make sure they're looking at the big picture alongside other professionals I know that you can work with your clients, like tax professionals and estate planning attorneys, to make sure that all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, but that they have the big picture and the long-term picture in view. You're not just looking behind or today. You're also looking ahead. Well, this has been a great show, but we're out of time, Mark. It flew by. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, after that process and after that retirement plan is written, after that it's just meeting once or twice a year. I'm available to the clients to call or email anytime with questions. So that's kind of the end of that segment. But I do want to mention something. I want to push something today. We have a fairly new YouTube channel. We're up to almost 30 videos in it.
Awesome.
Some are 3 minutes long, some are 5, some are of our past radio shows, okay? And the reason I'm pointing it out is if you go to YouTube and you put in the search box, Master Plan Retirement, first of all, you're going to see a couple of ads. If you go to the first non-ad, it's us. You'll see our logo. Now, you'll see some of my videos below that just happened to come up. But if you go to our channel, which is our logo, and click on that, you can subscribe and you will get alerts when we post a new video.
Oh, very cool.
We have our own studio now. We're doing a lot of recording. So go on there. I'm glancing at it. I've got one retirement tip for federal workers. I got a retirement tip of the day, taxes. We got radio shows, what color's your money. All of the stuff's on there. They're really good videos. And so I'm today, please go there, like it, and subscribe so you can stay up with the latest videos of what's happening today, not what happened 2 years ago and 5 years ago. So I want to, just ask people to do that because it's helpful for you. Otherwise, Tony, as you know, complimentary consultation to anybody that contacts us over the next few days. I've got about 6 openings. And if you just go to our website, masterplanretire.com, on the front page, I've got it open right now. At the bottom right-hand corner, it says schedule a meeting. There's a little button. You push that and my personal calendar pops up. Just put you a time on there that's good for you, and then we'll send you a confirmation and a Zoom link or a link to our office if you want to meet face-to-face, and we'll chat about your situation. So let's do that. Don't put it off. Don't procrastinate. Get this done.
Masterplanretire.com. Yep.
That is correct.
All right, and that does it for today's episode of Retirement Roadmap Radio with our host, Mark Fricks.
And thank you, Tony. A great show as always, and you're such a great co-host. I appreciate what you do. I hope you have a great week. And everybody else, have a great week. Enjoy life. Every morning you wake up with breath, it's a good day, okay? So count your blessings. As we go through the spring and the summer, enjoy your time, enjoy your family time, do what's important to you. But in the meantime, until we speak and talk or meet, plan well and prosper. Everybody have a great day.